Hello, everyone. It is 12:15, and I hope that everyone had a quick little break. And we will welcome you to the second panel, where we will focus on the existing initiative at post-secondary institutions across the country that are working on advancing sustainability education. The format of this panel is the same as the first panel, so we will get started on some general questions to all the panelists and then some specific questions on the panelists. And before that, I would like to introduce Dr. Keroles Riad, Jaydn Cowie, and our own Ceileigh McAllister. We have connected with these amazing panelists on our first event, which is the Sustainability Education Summit that took place on fall 2022. So Dr. Riad is the CEO of enuf, which is a spin-off B Corp social enterprise of the Waste Not, Want Not student initiative that he started at Concordia University. As the leader of a referendum on the topic, he delivered a clear mandate of Concordia University with 89% of participating students calling on the university to make an institutional commitment to teaching everyone about sustainability and the climate crisis via curriculum. Next, there is Jaydn Cowie, who is an undergrad student working for both Dalhousie College and the Office of Sustainability, and is doing her double major in environment, society, and sustainability and social anthropology with interest in accessibility. Last but not least, we have our own Ceileigh McAllister, who is one of the co-founders of the Sustainability Literacy Initiative at the University of Waterloo, and she is also currently with the Youth Network Coordinator at SDSN Canada. So now I will pass it back to Emma Kay to moderate this panel session.
Thanks, Grace. Okay, great. So thank you all for joining today. And I'm just going to start off with the first question, which is, why did you begin to work on this issue and where are the biggest gaps on your campus? And maybe I'll start with you, Kero.
Hi. Okay. So, thank you very much for all the great work organizing this panel today. It's a very important topic. Obviously, climate crisis is quite overwhelming and it spans every aspect of our society. Just a sheer urgency and the scope of the transformative change that needs to happen is just can get quite overwhelming, and it's not possible to address the challenges we're facing via the climate crisis or all sustainability challenges if not everybody is contributing via their own discipline, via their own profession. And I think there are two different levels of education that are taking place. Obviously, at the high school, there's general appreciation of different subjects, and then at the university, you get discipline-specific training on the profession that you want to have at your career. And I think we need to have sustainability education throughout. At a high school or a college, you should have a mandatory sustainability course that everybody needs to take, where you can get a general appreciation of the different broad issues. And then at a university, we should have mandatory sustainability courses that are discipline specific, because the way I would contribute as an engineer is different than the way a lawyer would contribute to the issues, and a business person is contributing to the issues, and an artist and a doctor and so on. And so it needs to be implemented throughout. And I would say that the my personal motivation is that I see that firsthand that education works. So one of the part of the introduction is that I started the student group called Waste Not, Want Not at Concordia, with the goal of helping the 50,000 member community at Concordia University learn how to compost, sort, and reduce their waste. And what we did is broad impact education. We send waste ambassador green brigades to events to help people learn how to sort their waste. There are over 30,000 people that attend events where our ambassadors are present at any given year. We give waste sorting tutorials to core classes across the university. And since we started, annual composting at Concordia has doubled, and annual overall waste has decreased by 16% per person. That's 2 months worth of garbage that disappear per person every year. Now, since we have incorporated into a B Corp social enterprise, we are working with other places in addition to Concordia, so one example is a high school where that didn't have a compost bins on their campus. And so we coordinated with the municipality to get them compost bins. And we did a waste audit before any work done, and then do a waste audit after. And in between, we did school-wide education. So we had those workshops, half-an-hour workshop, which is essentially a game to help the students learn how to sort their waste and how to use the new compost bins. And in one morning, we went through the entire student body at that high school. And before that work, the contamination rate in recycling was 23%. In 2023, the contamination rate was cut down to 9%. The new compost bins were virtually pure organic waste. The contamination rate is 0.4%. So when we do broad impact education that reaches everybody, people respond. So it works, and we need institutions to do the jobs and make sure that all their students are learning about these issues.
Great, thank you. Maybe Jaydn, if you want to speak to again, what prompted you to work on this issue, and what are the biggest gaps on your campus?
Yeah, for sure. Just a heads up, everyone, I'm a little bit sick, so my voice is a little croaky today. If I cut out, that's why. But I started studying sustainability in my first year at Dal. And I think that the biggest thing that prompted me to start working on this was that even by my third year, I didn't understand how the sustainability education at Dal worked. There was a lot of different resources that the institution offers, but they're not connected at all. I remember last year I was doing my co-op for the College of Sustainability, and they wanted me to just explain all of the sustainability initiatives on campus. And I found it very difficult to find all of this information, even though it's theoretically for students and supposed to be available to students. That was one of the first things where I was like, I'm a sustainability student quite heavily involved in this community, and I'm still very confused about how this is being delivered. So that was sort of the first thing. And then the second thing was, honestly, I have lots of peers. Both my roommates are in sustainability, and they're constantly talking to me about how sustainability could relate or connect, or environmental issues or whatnot could connect to their degrees, but it just doesn't. There's just no connection. And I'm surprised even sometimes some engineering friends who will talk about what they hear in the news, what they know in their individual worlds, that doesn't come up in their education. And so that's, I guess, for me, what piqued my interest in this was just there's so much connection that isn't happening on campus, but everybody is seeking outside of their formalized education, which is a little bit ridiculous to me. And then I guess the biggest gap on campus is that also we're very lucky to have a College of Sustainability at Dal. But a lot of the time, all of the curriculum and education gets pinned on them, which is they do a great job, but they don't have the capacity to educate all the students. I think they've only graduated, or they have graduated 800 students in the past 10, 15 years. It's still a smaller program. And so it's great that we have that, but a lot of the time, the president sort of puts pressure on the college to do all of the work when it's really not just the college's area.
Great. And then Ceileigh.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So right now the Sustainability Literacy Initiative is a bit of a bigger group at the University of Waterloo, but when it started about 2 years ago, it was just me and Emma. Emma the moderator, not other Emma. We have an Emma K and an Emma V. But Emma and I started this initiative because we thought that there was a pretty significant gap in sustainability knowledge and sustainability skills for undergraduate students on campus. So no need to beat a dead horse or whatever that expression is. I think we all understand right now why sustainability education is very important for students to have, and why it's really important for the workforce that future employees have sustainability education. And Emma and I identified that just not enough students were having this sustainability education. I think the statistic that was submitted a couple of years ago is less than 20% of students have built-in sustainability courses in their academic plan. Similar to Jaydn, we don't have a college of sustainability. We actually have a full faculty of environment, and that is a blessing and a curse. Blessing in many ways, like we have, I think Francis was talking about SEED, which is our environment and business and international development school, and they do some really great and innovative work. But the problem with the faculty of environment, it reinforces sustainability as a disciplinary issue. And as we've already heard in our first panel, and we're going to get into now, sustainability is fundamentally interdisciplinary. And at the University of Waterloo, and at most universities in general, people who work in that traditional sustainability discipline take sustainability courses, and people who aren't in that traditional sustainability discipline don't. And unfortunately, moving towards net zero, 50% reduction by 2030, net zero by 2050, the 2030 agenda, achieving all 17 SDGs by 2030. We need more than for sustainability education just to be taking place in that sustainability discipline.
Great. Thanks, Ceileigh. And then my second question, maybe Ceileigh, you start off with this one. What is the biggest challenge of implementing existing initiatives of sustainable literacy at the post-secondary level, and how have you overcome it, or maybe in the process of doing so?
Yes, very much in the process of doing so. But the biggest challenge that we've really been having is inertia. Implementing and convincing people that broader sustainability education is important is a very big task. And so obviously building momentum for that is super challenging. Thankfully, we do have a very big ally. And I think a number of people who support us in this entity are actually here on the call today, but the sustainability office at UW is really great. They're currently going through a recruitment process for the first full-time sustainability curriculum specialist, which is really, really exciting. We're really excited to see that that's happening. So the allyship and the support of the university or the sustainability office has been really instrumental in kind of helping us have faith that we can overcome the laws of science. In addition, we have done our best to overcome these challenges basically in three main ways. The first is building partnerships. So other people working in the space, even if it's like tertiary, just connecting with them, that's been very important. Supporting others who are doing this work. So there's a lot of other students on campus who are actually quite interested in it, in embedding sustainability education, and Emma and I have had the opportunity to meet with them and chat with them about it. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is we operate on the principle that the most important thing we can do as a sustainability literacy initiative is put the idea of sustainability education and sustainability literacy in the heads put the idea of sustainability literacy into the heads of as many people as possible. Whenever I'm giving a speaking engagement about this, whether it's a smaller call like this, I think we had 30 or 40 people, or a bigger speaking engagement where I'm speaking to like 300 or 400 people, I always say the most important thing that I can do as an activist, I need to share my perspective and say, this is why I think sustainability education is important. And I need to hope that it sticks to some people's heads and they find a way to operationalize that in their own lives and in their own spheres.
Great. Thanks, Ceileigh. Maybe Jaydn, if you want to talk about what it's like at Dal.
Yeah, for sure. I think initially the first thing for me was it was sort of scary, like approaching this. Like I heard from met Keroles last year and learned all about this Concordia referendum, and sort of was like, I want to do something like this, but I actually don't know how to. Finding the resources and like sort of filing through the bureaucracy of like how to actually make this happen was a little bit tough. But once I found partners, so now I work for the sustainability office in the student union for the student union. And there's in that world, there's so much support, sort of similar to what Ceileigh said, was like once we got the ball rolling, we're actually I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we're creating an issues policy on climate change for the sustainability for the DSU. And once we got that out there and sort of said, hey, who wants to help? Who's interested? Like, can we get students? There was a lot more interest than, I guess not than what we were expecting, but then I had seen before. And so I think sort of once I was able to file through the the bureaucracy and the like complications of like, okay, you have to go to this council meeting and then get this approved, as to like even just start a policy. But once that was over with, it actually seems to be pretty straightforward, and sort of similar to what Kaylee said, lots of the faculty, the College of Sustainability and also the Office of Sustainability is very supportive, and although they're also all very overworked, they're willing to sort of help me wherever they can, or help us wherever they can. So yeah, I think the biggest challenge was definitely kind of figuring out where to start. But once we've started, it seems to have some good traction.
Great, thanks. And then Caro, again, implementing existing initiatives of sustainable literacy at Concordia and how you overcame it.
Yeah, I realized that I actually forgot a little part of the first question. So I'm going to address that because it's related to the biggest challenges as well. So in terms of the gaps, right, and I'm going to talk a little bit of statistics and numbers. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so I have to apologize for that in advance. But essentially, so the STARS is there's a body called STARS that essentially is the North American gold standard of assessing how universities contribute to sustainability. They ask the university a lot of different questions about a lot of different aspects of sustainability, operational, academic, and so on. And the university self-reports data. And one of the questions asks about how many students graduate out of a program with sustainability learning outcome. And essentially what that means is that how many students come out of a program that has a mandatory sustainability course, right? And the national average in Canada is 37%. At Concordia is 19%. For the record, at Waterloo is about 14%, at Dalhousie is 41%. So the props to you. and regardless, I think 37% is way too low in the first place. It should be 100% because we need everybody to participate. But you know, the gap at least at Concordia is that we're 2 times lower than the national average, right? So this is where the gaps are, and I think the biggest challenge is the missing leadership. Institutional leadership. So there's a lot of leadership in the community within students, staff, and professors, even at deans and department chairs. I can see that firsthand. There's a lot of leadership there. It's at senior administration level. This is where the leadership is missing. And to be honest, I just never overcome that. So that's one part of it. There are 2 other kind of sub-challenges there. Number one is misusing academic freedom, the important principles of academic freedom, where the university president or provost will say, as a president, I cannot tell the professors what to teach. That goes against their academic freedom. But that's not how academic freedom works. We're not trying to force every professor to teach sustainability. But just like in a physics course, you expect a physics expert or a physics teacher to teach physics, in an engineering course where you see that sustainability is relevant, you would expect the sustainability experts you have in engineering faculty to teach sustainability in an engineering course, right? So there are over 200 professors at Concordia whose research focuses on sustainability, and they span every faculty and every department of Concordia. So you just need to find ways to restructure the programs so that you can empower sustainability experts you already have to teach the subjects that they are experts in within their disciplines. All right, so it's not against academic freedom. It just needs to have a process. You need the leadership to facilitate the process to restructure programs in this way. The second part is, and this is where I have a lot of beef, a lot of, I can rant, which is when university starts acting like PR firms, right? And see sustainability as a branding exercise. And this has kind of 2 symptoms. The first one is universities claiming whatever it is they think can get away with. So one example, there was a question in Times Higher Education Impacts Ranking where it asked if the university has sustainability curriculums that applies to every student at the university. Concordia answered yes. Yeah. The months after, it was a STAR submission. It has the same question, but Concordia answered no, because later on in the STARS, it asked, well, how many students do you graduate from sustainability, programs with sustainability learning outcome? And you have to provide the numbers, you have to provide proof for it. So you have to answer no to the first question, which essentially the same as a question that he answered yes to a month before. So we have a situation where university essentially would say whatever it is it thinks it can get away with. The second part is when you suppress critical voices. So during the referendum campaign, I was reaching out to professor to ask him to speak publicly in support of this. And a few people did, but one response kind of stuck with me. And I was told essentially that if I want support, I should reach out to professors who have tenure. Professors cannot get fired, right? And that essentially tells you everything about the culture at the university at this point, right? It's not a, and then they hide behind academic freedom, right? So it is freedom of speech, and it has to be in a university. We should be able to speak our minds, and we be able to have discussions about these issues. I'm going to stop here, so I can't talk too much.
Emma, you are still muted, but I would second what Kiro just said. That second point is something Emma and I have heard more times than I can count, I think, on two hands.
And much
I
more than
also
you
would
think.
highlight that. That is a big thing. Or professors who would like to support, but have said they're worried about their positions, which is scary.
Mhm. Yeah. And this next question follows this very well. And if you want to talk more to it, I think it's a discussion that needs to be had. But from your perspective, how do you see the work that you're doing benefiting different stakeholders in post-secondary education, including students, university administrations, and future employers? And maybe Jaydn, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I wrote down actually was exactly what Francis had said in the first panel, was that if we graduate sustainably literate grads, they wouldn't have to retrain them. I know that that's a big problem in any industry, essentially, is not having the right training. And it has to be like sort of exactly what Francis said. It has to be the right training, and it has to be done properly. And so it is unfortunate that university graduates who theoretically are graduating ready to enter the industry still need all of that training. So that's sort of, how that would affect the future employers. Next, the director of the College of Sustainability is a lovely man. He's been a boss and sort of mentor of mine for a while. And he sort of says, like, we owe it to students. Like, that's kind of his message, is that students deserve to have this, and not just students who choose to, but students at least need to have, need to know about the climate crisis, know about solutions, know about sustainability literacy, and then they can choose whether they care or not, whether to act on it or not. But I think that it's sort of like framing it as something that an institution owes, as opposed to something that they could do. I liked that. It's just it's a responsibility. It's not, there's no question about that anymore. And then, for administration, I think it's actually an exciting time. It's a time to sort of rebuild the whole, in a perfect world, the whole institution. But it's there's room for lots of creativity and sort of freedom to switch up the way that education is taught. As we all know, the programs every 5 years have to go through the approval or whatever. And so that's just perfect time to include, sustainability into education. So I got distracted by the text in the chat. But I think, that's it from me.
Great. And maybe Carol, you want to follow up with that?
Yeah, so I think in terms of benefits to different stakeholders, I'm just going to talk about senior administration again for a second. It depends on the admin's perspective, right? When I sat on a few curriculum committees at Concordia, where I saw that every time there's a new program, there's a section in the proposal that has a survey of the interest of prospective students, so that they want to make the business case that this is something that students are going to sign up for, that are going to apply for that program, right? So it could be viewed, so things like referendum that we have done, it can be viewed by the administration as help them make the case, right? To demonstrate that interest, that they can go saying that if we make those changes, it will help our students it will help recruit more students. And as we heard today in the earlier panel, they would be at a competitive disadvantage compared to other universities that actually do that work already, right? And so So that's one perspective. The other perspective, you're making us look bad, we're gonna have an adversary relationship, right? And that's, so it all depends on where the administration is coming from. That's the first part. The second part is that with the referendum, we had an 89% yes vote of students demanding that the Concordia commits to teaching everybody at Concordia, every student about sustainability and climate crisis and curriculum. That referendum had the highest turnout in our student union history. So, and it was widely covered by the CBC and so on. But in essence, even though it doesn't have a compelling, like it does not compel the university to actually do anything. It doesn't have that kind of authority, but it is an indicting statement by student bodies that says our curriculum has ill-prepared us for the challenges we're going to go face. And it's too late, even if the university tomorrow changes the curriculum, it's too late for those students because they're graduating, they're already in those programs. And so what you're saying is that the Concordia has already failed us to meet the challenge, to address the challenges we're walking into, and we refuse to stay complicit with it failing the next generation too, right? And that's an empowering statement for students, and it's a motivation for professors. Back to Jaydn's point, that they owe the students in sustainability literacy. That's their job, to train the students to equip the students with the skills that they need to meet the challenges or address the challenges that they're facing, and they're not doing it. And so that's kind of push, that kind of motivation, I think is really helpful for professors who are trying to get that work done. They say, well, look, the students are demanding it, and we owe it to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Ceileigh, maybe follow up with that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to try and keep my comments brief, which sometimes I'm not good at, but I am watching the clock and seeing we're running out of time. So at the Sustainability Literacy Initiative, the model that we propose is similar to what Keroles alluded to at the beginning. Students taking courses relevant to their discipline. So how does sustainability relate to civil engineering? How does sustainability relate to accounting? How does sustainability relate to law? And the reason why this is the model we suggest, as opposed to everyone taking Sustainability 101, or it being embedded into existing courses, is because we think, again, as Keroles mentioned, we think that it provides the greatest competitive advantage. So it benefits the graduate, but it also benefits the workforce, and it benefits the hiring managers and the companies that these graduates are going to go on to work for. So we have all heard it. Again, we're all here, so I don't need to beat a dead horse, but like how ESG is exploding. Deloitte recently declared that sustainability is a business imperative, operationalizing the SDGs within business. We totally understand that sustainability is important to the workforce, but even more so, kind of looking at it from a bigger perspective, we understand how the workforce is related to sustainability. Most emissions are associated with greenhouse gas emissions, and those that aren't are mostly associated with agriculture, and they're associated with deforestation. The economy is an enormous driver of climate change and global inequities. So having students that understand how sustainability works are going to help us realize the this sustainable future. And on the flip side, the workforce is increasingly being asked to be more sustainable. This is something consumers care about more. This is something the general public cares about a lot more. And if a student understands how sustainability applies to their discipline, they are going to do a much better job of equipping their company or the organization that they're working for to take action on building a sustainable future.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
you're
again,
muted again.
I know. But just to add, I know but everyone knows what's happening. We see the floods, we see the fires, and it is very concerning to come out of a university degree and spend 4 years not learning about how we're going to contribute to a better future. And maybe Ceileigh, I'll send the first question to you for this next set. But as the co-founder of the Sustainability Literacy Initiatives, what are the main objectives of the initiative, and how would it help future generations of students graduating from Waterloo?
Perfect. So as I said before, the most important job of the Sustainability Literacy Initiative is we need to start as many conversations as we can about the importance of sustainability literacy and important universal sustainability education. Emma and I and Grace and other Emma and all other colleagues we have working with us, we understand that as students, we cannot legislate new university policy at University Senate. And trust me, I have tried. I got elected as a senator specifically because that was my objective. And I found out it does not work that way. You only get to vote. You do get to do other things, but more complex than I hoped. But we know that we can start conversations. And once we have a critical mass of people that support sustainability education and universal sustainability education, we're going to start seeing that transformative change that we are pushing for. Again, like we've all mentioned, understanding sustainability is very important professionally. And that's what we've really been trying to articulate through this panel and a lot of the advocacy work that Emma and I have been trying to advocate. But one dimension that we've really left out about the importance of sustainability education is why personally sustainability education is important for us to have, and sustainability literacy is important for us to have. If we were all in person, which we are not, because we are joining from all around the place, all around, what I would do is I would get everyone to put their hand up and say, who has a 72-hour emergency preparedness kit in their house? Kind of, we have 1 yes and 3 kind ofs. 72-hour emergency preparedness kit is very important to have from an adaptation perspective. Who here knows what the climate analog, who here actually knows what climate analog means? I'll explain climate analog. Climate analog basically means, so if I live in Ontario, where on earth is experiencing the climate that where I live is going to experience in 2030? So is Texas right now like what Ontario is going to be like in 2030? But who here knows what our climate analog is going to be like? Emma, do you know what the weather is going to be like in Waterloo? Kiro, do you know what the weather is going to be like in Ottawa? Not Montreal anymore. So see, from an adaptation perspective, personally, having knowledge about sustainability is very important, but also from a mitigation perspective, understanding how you vote, how you shop, how you eat, how you live, how that affects sustainability. Because again, sustainability isn't just a workforce issue. Sustainability encompasses how we all live. So mitigating sustainability will require people to have a critical breadth of knowledge on sustainability. And so that's a really great way. That's a little bit more of an advocacy thing. There are a lot more, it's a little bit of a more difficult push, but that's another thing that Emma and I find to be very important as why a sustainability literacy requirement is a good idea. Great. And Carol, because you took the route of approaching your student union and holding a referendum to call out Concordia to commit to teaching all its students about sustainability and the climate crisis curriculum, I'm curious about what lessons you hope others will take from your work at Concordia.
I think just the fact that there's a lot of interest, that if you put a referendum, it will pass overwhelmingly, regardless of where and which university and when. So we actually had a repeat referendum again last year, targeting the Faculty of Arts and Science, and it also passed overwhelmingly with an 85% vote. And so there's a lot of interest, and what's actually needed is somebody to organize and give people the platform to voice that interest, right? So because without it, it's just hidden and oftentimes also suppressed by the institution itself. And I think, so that's, to me, that's gives me hope that also hopefully other people, and I'm really happy that Ceileigh and Jaydn reach out, and there are quite a few other students from different universities as well reach out because of that referendum, saying that how can I push this within my university as well. And so that's, I think it just gives people hope that they should organize, and gives that platform to students to voice their interest and mobilize within their community. And I think I would even reference the divestment campaign, because this is how it worked, is that pretty much every university had similar referendum saying that they want the university to divest from fossil fuels. And some universities did, some universities did not, but the divestment movement cost the fossil fuel industry trillions of dollars. And it had a massive impact. And I think this movement with sustainability curriculum should follow similar route. My hope is to see every student union across Canada to hold this kind of referendum and make these kind of statements. And if you look at the University of Barcelona, news that came out of University of Barcelona a couple of months ago, students had a protest that essentially occupied the university for a week, right? And those protests only stopped after the university committed to having a mandatory sustainability courses, not only for all their students, but also all their staff, right? And this worked because and that article had an interesting statement that if this had happened 10 years ago, the university would have called the police for the students. But they know they cannot do this now because everybody else agrees with the student and everybody else knows that the students are right? And so they would not have the political cover to call the police on the students because the students are demanding something that is vital for their future, right? And so I think the lesson is just do it. It takes bravery, it takes courage, and that's what we have to do. Is our future.
Great. And along those lines, I'm hoping, Jaydn, you can speak to how Dalhousie is moving forward to increase sustainability literacy on campus.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief, just being aware of the time. But we tried to copy Keroles, but unfortunately, we don't have a direct referendum style through this as the student union. So that's why we're creating this issues policy on climate change. And it's a greater policy. So there's different people from different like food initiatives working on food security on campus, Indigenous groups working on Indigenous sovereignty, physical environment, and I'm focusing on the curriculum portion of this. And essentially we're gonna, once we have this finished, sort of say, this is the student stance on policy and climate change, hopefully bring it to the Senate, hopefully they care. That's kind of the, and then also the College of Sustainability is in the works of trying to do what they can with their power. They're trying to create different sort of certificates that open up, that sort of like fit into all of the programs. So there's one specifically that's directed towards end students. There's one they're connecting with the food agricultural campus. So there's lots going on there. Unfortunately, sort of, the administration, there's not too much going on, but we're hoping that taking the student stance will inspire them, or at least open their ears a little bit more to what the students want and what we're demanding.
Excellent. Thank you. And if anyone has a question in the chat, we have 8 minutes left. Okay, we have a question for you, Jaydn. Is the student stance on sustainability in the curriculum available publicly? So I think what you said, in progress? Yeah,
not yet. We've created sort of the bones for it, and it has to get approved by the DSU Council, which is happening next week. And then we're gonna probably release it by end of March. So we can try to keep you posted if you would like.
Excellent. Great. Maybe here's a question for everyone, because I know that at Waterloo, it's a priority of the university through their, is it Ceileigh sustainability strategy? I know there's a couple different strategies that mention sustainability literacy, and I'm curious at Dalhousie and Concordia, where are those priorities visible, and how can you use those to help talk to the university administration?
Yeah, I'll go for it. There's still in the works a sort of sustainability framework being made. I think it was supposed to be released at the end of 2022. That didn't happen. But I know that there is some information there about sustainability in the curriculum. And then there was a report done by the Office of Sustainability at Dal in 2020, and they got lots of information on like students' willingness, students' eagerness, basically students demanding sustainability. And that is in our issues report. So we are using that as leverage, sort of how to bring to Senate, sort of to say, hey, this is what students are asking. This is research that's been done on campus, also through the institution. So we're using your own research. So you should take this into account.
Ceileigh, do you want to go next? Because I can speak for an hour. So
You can go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, okay, thank you. So I mean, at Concordia, so I used to sit at a few different sustainability committees at Concordia that wrote Concordia Sustainability Action Plan. One of them is curriculum, and one thing I would, well, a couple of things to point out. It took Concordia 5 years to come up with a 5-year sustainability plan, and there are few reasons for that, but one of them is that there was an extensive consultation process, community consultation process, to know what the community wants to do. And the outcome of this very long consultation process was that every program, was a statement in the draft plan that every program at Concordia will have sustainability curriculum, mandatory sustainability curriculum. It's exactly what we're asking for. The final meeting before that draft goes public or goes for approvals, that statement was just removed and diluted to, we're going to increase access to sustainability education and curriculum, right? And I remember this committee meeting because I had an hour-long fight with the chair, but essentially it was the will of the community, right, was unilaterally overridden by one person, right? And it's so that's really frustrating for me. And you know, the diluted statement does not quantify whatever it means, right? Like, what does increasing access to sustainability education actually means? It doesn't quantify any of that. So again, sometimes these plans are just written for PR fundraising purposes, whether it's that they show it to government or they show it to donors, so that they can fundraise over these things. But what's tangibly is being committed to is not clear. And the other part that bothered me is that it never went to Senate or never went to academic panel to actually discuss the curriculum aspect of the plan, even though Senate is the highest governing body on curriculum. And to Kayleigh's point, and Jaydn as well, this plan does not work if there's no vote in Senate to actually commit the institution to teaching everybody about sustainability, and to also have a mechanism that gets it done. And one model here is the University of Laval that actually just did just that about 13, 14 years ago, where the Senate voted to have every student at Laval learn about the SDGs in their education. And they use a program appraisal process, saying that the next time your program is going to go through appraisals, this is your deadline to make the changes, right? So because every program has to go through appraisal process every 10 years, and over 10 years, every student is going to have access, is going to have mandatory sustainability curriculum. And they are at 95% of their students coming out of programs with sustainable learning outcome right now. So this is a model that I think every university should have, and the Senate, it takes involvement from Senate. But as Ceileigh has experienced, it takes leadership to actually get that done.
Yeah, and I think the leadership is important at every school. I think there's often a whole bunch of people ready to jump on the bandwagon, but unless something gets started, it won't really go much anywhere. But on that note, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We're going to wrap it up now. But yeah, thank you so much to all our panelists, but also to our audience listening in. And just a housekeeping thing, if you want to connect with any of these organizations, we'll be sending an email out with the 3 organizations partnering on this initiative, this webinar today, in addition to access to a recording, so we can hopefully share this conversation further. Great.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you to our panelists for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Happy
Thank you so
Friday.
much for organizing.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.